And welcome to the Integrated Interventions Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Dundas, the Director of Education, and excited to have Kat Gilmore today, who's the founder of the Literacy Project of North Idaho. Kat, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I was excited to have you here because I've known of your organization for a while. Some of our students have potentially worked with the organization, and I was excited to have you here to kind of talk more about what you do. So how did the project come about?
Well, the project started, I moved here probably 12 years ago, and my background is in adult literacy. When I moved here 12 years ago, I had 20 years experience. So I thought that was going to be my job when I moved to North Idaho. I thought, I'll work in adult literacy, and these programs are nationwide. So I thought I'd just pop into one and just kind of volunteer until there was a position open, and that would kind of be my role. When I moved here, there wasn't an adult literacy program in North Idaho. Excuse me. And so I didn't go into that workforce. I still had clients online that I worked with through tutoring and different things. So my business was just kind of at home, but I wanted to get out more into the community. So I took a job with Lakeland Joint School District. And I worked in the district office there in lots of roles over the years. And then finally one day they're like, "Isn't your background in adult literacy?" And I said, "Indeed." And they're like, "We know adult literacy." And they're correct, of course. This is under Dr. Becky Meyer and the assistant superintendent at the time, Lisa Arnold, who's now the superintendent. The 72% of children, if we have children struggling with reading, there's a 72% chance that their parents are also struggling with reading. So we started looking at kind of thinking outside the box, the best way to support our students. Of course, we have teachers in the classroom, boots on the ground. But what if we could help the parents and help them to be able to work with their students more efficiently? So we started the Lakeland Literacy Project through Lakeland School District. And I started working with parents and doing volunteers through the community. And so we started that program, but then when COVID, that's a service that's not directly tied to students. And, with COVID and the world was upside down. So
everything changed.
Everything changed. And I wasn't directly tied to students in that role at that time. Or, I was kind of a fringe role, kind of a luxury for the school district. And so at that time, my job came to an end, which is 100% expected during COVID. And so I, at that point, was just kind of sitting on my couch, and I still had volunteers working with people in the community, working with parents. So I thought, well, they need somebody to still direct and to call. So I started the Literacy Project of North Idaho. And it was kind of always in the back wings that we wanted to expand. We wanted to do more in Kootenai County. We didn't want to just be with kind of limiting ourselves, not limited, but, just to that geographical area. We knew the nationwide number is 1 in 5 adults can't read above a 3rd grade level. So if that number is statistically, it's everywhere, right? So it gave us the opportunity, me being unemployed at the time. I worked at NIC at the time, part-time as well. Me being unemployed gave me that time, that summer, why everybody else was, give me something to focus on, I guess. So I started the project then and did everything to found it. And then when we came out of COVID, we kind of hit the ground running. So that's kind of a very long story about how we got here.
Well, it was a neat opportunity to really make a difference in an area that I feel like is kind of underutilized and underserved. It seems like you've always had a passion for literacy.
Absolutely.
Was there a moment where you realized that this is something I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah, I think I was in grad school. I was working on my thesis, and I had time, right? I wasn't in classes at the time. And so I started working and volunteering. I was like, I have this time. Community is always important to me. I'm very passionate about supporting community, and I didn't exactly know what that role was. I was a single mother and a student full-time, and in graduate school, life was crazy. But then I had this, you give somebody a tiny corner, and they're like, what could I do with this corner of time? And so I looked to my community to see where could I best serve them? I've been supported by my community multiple times in my life. So I was in graduate school, and I took a class right before I started volunteering, and it was focusing on adult literacy and looking at adult literacy through lenses that hadn't occurred to me, So I learned a lot about people just couldn't read, and that just it didn't click with me, I suppose. I loved reading, but looking through this class, I realized that reading was bigger than just not being able to read the great American novel, which is a shame in and of itself, always. But also not be able to read a prescription bottle to support your children's health, your own health, not going to doctors because there's a sheet of papers, a ton of them, and being intimidated by that. And I know what it feels like to be intimidated by ideas or by buildings or life. And I couldn't imagine something as fundamental and necessary as reading being something that was intimidating to you, that would cut off sources and resources to you. So it just kind of blew my mind. This was the last class of grad school, and it changed the way I viewed the world. It really did. And then I started working. So I volunteered. I found out about a program that helps people do this. So I did all of the training. I did all of the things. And it was a good home base for me. So that's kind of what started it. So I've been passionate always about community. Literacy was something that I didn't, as kind of silly as it sounds now. And I think I speak for a lot of people this way. I mean, I was in graduate school with an English literature degree, and all of these different things. And it hadn't occurred to me that people couldn't read. That was kind of an odd thing. And I still think about that to this day. Like, how did I miss that? But I caught it. And it gave me a place to funnel into my community in a way that gave me passion. I would have done something else in the community, right? But this is where my heart really is, in opening up those doors for people. And education opened doors for me. My whole life, I'm a first generation college student. I had no real role models. So education opened this world that I could read books and talk about them with people. So I thought being able to give that gift to somebody else, not just to talk about ideas, but to survive, that's a really good use of my time. So I threw myself into that. I think it was more than a full-time job when I was writing my thesis, and my partner then, now my husband, was like, you still are writing that thesis. And I go, I know, I've got to go. I've got to do this. So I was super passionate about it, and it gave me an avenue, and I learned so very much. So that's kind of how I started.
Well, what are some of the challenges that the region faces when you think about literacy? Now, I'm glad you brought up functional literacy in terms of like the prescription bottle. That's something I feel like is overlooked for sure. What are some of the things that come to mind when you look at challenges that this community faces?
Well, I think this community, like I said, the number nationwide is 1 in 5 adults. That puts us at 54 million, which is up. The number's only getting bigger, unfortunately. 36 million 5 years ago when I was working with Lakeland. That number was 36 million. And now the number is 54 million, according to our latest study that was released in December of 2024. So if that's nationwide, everywhere, right? Looking our neighboring states and compared to East Coast, West Coast, it's the same. Our area has some challenges. Mainly, we have rural challenges, just like a lot of other states have rural challenges. When we're farther away, it becomes more difficult to get resources. That's really kind of, we talked a little bit about that, and talking about borders. Sometimes it's about removal, right? So people lose steps away from access. So that's one of the challenges of our area. I think rural is probably the biggest, just that we're so spread out. And we have areas all throughout our county and Bonner County right next to us. And so I think our biggest challenge may be that, but also awareness. I don't think people have awareness that the numbers of literacy are what they are nationwide, not unique to us everywhere, but that there are people here who can't read above a 3rd grade level. And I think there's a lack of awareness about our English as a second language population, our language learner population. People kind of think, that we don't have a lot of different ethnicities or language learners here. And we do. We have quite a few. In our program alone, we have probably 50 learners currently from all over kind of our globe right now in our class. So I think part of it is raising awareness that this literacy thing is here because it's a hidden population. There's a lot of shame in not knowing how to read. Every adult learner feels like they're the only one who didn't get it. And so they're in this isolated bubble. So they don't talk about it to anybody. Some of our students' families don't even know that they can't read. So it's a struggle to deal with this in an adult population. So being hidden is hard to raise awareness about. So we can speak in like 1 in 5, but everyone's like, yeah, maybe other places not here, but it is here. And being able to let people know that there is an organization that can help them and they're not alone. Every adult learner that comes into our program for low literacy says that exact thing. I thought I was the only one. And it's like hitting it on repeat to hear it again. So that's just, it builds isolation. And with isolation, we pull ourselves back from all of the things that we could be doing potentially for ourselves, but also for our families and for our community. So I think our biggest challenge has to be our awareness that we have resources, because spread out, right? We're almost sending smoke signals at some point. I feel like that sometimes with the Literacy Project, just letting people know that it's here to provide these resources. And our resources are free to everybody in the community. So I really do want people to use them. I mean, there's no hidden agenda here. I mean, you know this. Sometimes just getting this word out to let people know that we're here to help.
Well, and that's important too, because you've been here for a while, but I think it's important to talk about, the program and the initiatives that you offer. What are some examples of those that you're currently working with that you want people to know about?
The programs and things we're working on?
Correct. Yeah. Maybe some current areas of focus that you're working on with the population that you're looking to serve. Yeah.
Our capacity building is primarily focusing right now on low literacy adults, and that's anybody over 18 to, we've had learners as high as 60. And we also, and the language participation, learning English language to be able to communicate more in our community. These are our two biggest roles that we're working on. We've worked with digital literacy and family literacy in the past. We're just so maxed out right now when it comes to our two driving focuses really are those two elements. And when we think, and we go back to that functional literacy idea, that's what low literacy, we're helping them to read, to learn phonics, and to build on their reading skills so they can just, so many things are functional literacy. Like I work with an adult learner who shared with me that being able to read some of the things, I said, just keep track of the little things that you know. Just send me a text in the middle of the day and just tell me something that you did that you couldn't have done before, just so things that I don't think about. One of the things that people don't consider is like, as an example, like we talked about the pill bottle, is that to pay bills, this person has to take a full day off work. So they lose a whole salary day of income. To go to a bank to get cash, to go physically to each place where they have power bill, a phone bill, wherever, and pay in person, because they don't pay online. That online is a lot of reading to get through this. So it becomes a thing that they have to go one-on-one, place by place. And that takes a whole day out of somebody's work week once a month to go in and do all of this, plus the driving. And I don't know if you've paid a bill in person in a while. It is quite frustrating to wait. I think about Verizon, we're waiting to pay our bill as much as we are to get our phone fixed or to buy a new phone. It's all the same line, right? So things like that time efficiency and those components, so functional literacy. And then also language learners. We have a refugee population here, Ukrainians and Russians here. Now we have Spanish speakers. We have students from as far as China and Bulgaria to Brazil, and then our Spanish speakers, Mexico, as well as Spain and Russia and Ukraine right now.
Well, it's awesome that is a resource available here, because when I was working on my next degree, when I was going back for education, for special education, the closest place would have been within Spokane Falls Community College or the community colleges of Spokane. Of course, this was over a decade ago, but it's neat that exists here, because I wasn't aware of the English language learner component with the literacy programs that you offer. Yeah. So I think that's really cool that you're offering that. It sounds like it's something that has a lot of interest.
It does. It's a community-based program, and that's where it kind of differs, is that it's not on an academic trajectory, right? So a lot of our people are meeting during the day. We hold small group classes, and it's because the husbands have been gone to work all day, the children go to school, and there's a group of women who are wives and mothers are probably the most underserved in our population, because they're not out in the workforce learning English. The children are in school learning English through their programs. And then moms are kind of left. So having them being able to come in and practice their English with it being just community-based, like let's talk about things, let's talk about medicine cabinets, let's talk about safety, let's talk about our lives. And the small classes are curriculum-based through our nationwide organization of pro-literacy, but they do focus primarily first and foremost on life skills, like using the words you need to call 911 and talking about medicines and how to interact with doctors. So a lot of it's community-based, whereas Spokane Community College, it is really our only language programs. And through that, it's predominantly online, I believe, but it does a lot of curriculum and building vocabulary and writing and things of that nature.
Where that gives you the opportunity to really focus on functional based literacy. Well, and it's probably also neat from that perspective of to be able to be around people where they thought they were the only one, but they're like, look, there's other people who are going through what I'm going through. So that provides probably some comfort as well, to have an outlet of people to be able to come together.
Yep. And 100%. And it's confidential. All the work we do is confidential. And so when you see people there, it's in a confidential, safe space. We create this safe space. That's one of the things we talk about when we interview people. If you see other people here, they're all here for the same reason you are. It has to do with functional literacy. And like you said, seeing other people passing through the doors is a gift, right? It just goes into that subconscious file.
What are some of the biggest obstacles that you've faced in growing your organization?
Well, the biggest obstacle, we live in a beautiful community. It's very generous. We have great volunteers. So I always want more volunteers. I'm never going to say I have too many. That's not it. We need more. We have a waiting list. So please think about volunteering with us. But funding is a hard part for us because we're community-based, and this model of adult literacy that I've worked on in 2 or 3 different places through pro-literacy, this model is done through community libraries generally. And so the funding comes through state and federal money for adult literacy. In North Idaho, and I'm not sure about Southern Idaho, but that model isn't the model that Idaho uses. So we don't have access to state and federal funding for that, for our program. So, and because we're not academically driven, like we're not trying to show so many GEDs or moving forward and rotating into like an NIC or into a college track pathway. We're doing more community literacy. Like we're helping grandmothers read stories to their children and, things like that. They're not going to, get a better job because of that. That's not their goal. We're 100% learner focused. When we talked about what the program is, our one-on-one literacy is focused primarily very similar to what you and I were talking about with your program. You build that curriculum and that plan for this one person, put all that love and energy into one. And we do the same. So every one-on-one situation is built to that learner. What is it you want to know? How can we help you? Oh, I want to read. And if you could read, what would you do with that? Oh, I want to do this. So our goal starts to build them to get the skills they need to get to the goal they want. When they get to that goal shifts, right? And we keep going and we just keep going into whatever field they want. But so having that one-on-one area. So because we're not creating, ultimately we're creating better families. Like we create a mother who can now read her kids' homework and help them with homework, and to be able to practice English for her husband's workforce, right? So he can move up in his job, or she could get a job part-time in her community. So all of those things are improving, but there's no, it's not set out for those traditional models of funding. So without that, we're 100% donor supported. So funding has been a challenge to be able to hire. I volunteer my whole program. I've volunteered all my roles, all the hats that I wear in my program are all volunteer based, as all of our tutors are volunteers. But to have an executive director to wrangle a program, to keep the lights on, to keep everybody moving, to make sure, 40 plus volunteers and 60 learners, that's something to hold on to. You got to move that. Somebody has to be over it. Right now, I'm currently over it. But I'm also a full-time professor at NIC, as well as a full-time director of the Literacy Project. So being able to have somebody who has that specialty that I don't. I'm a founder. I have a vision, and I have the education and the joy and the love and the passion to share. I don't necessarily know if I'm the best strategic planner that's out there. So with that, that's what we need funding for. And salaries just aren't sexy ever. Nobody likes funding salaries, but we know what it's like to not have a salary. And then, we can't ask a volunteer to wrangle something as a juggernaut as this. So I do, because it's, I know the value of it. I know how important it is. I see our volunteers every day, and they tell me that I'm friends with one of our volunteers, and I was speaking to them the other evening, and they said, you just don't even know. My life is so different than it was a year ago. Like, I can't imagine that this person has become such an integral part of my life that I think about them all the time. And I'm hoping for the best for them. And I'm always working with them. And they're so integrated into my life that I didn't even know this person a year ago. And my life is so much richer for knowing them. So when you have all those stories and all those people, you do need somebody help do that, work that. And that's where we are right now.
What are some of those success stories? I know you've had a few already that you've kind of hinted and mentioned, but maybe what is one that comes to your mind? And that's probably a hard one to really pull from because I'm sure there are so many.
There are so many great stories. Our very first learner working when it was under Lakeland Literacy, our very first learner we ever met was my hairdresser. And I was telling her what a gift it was that I could do this program with Lakeland at the time. And she says, "Oh, great, I'll be your first person." And I said, "Oh, wonderful, looking for volunteers." She goes, "No, you're going to have to teach me to read." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "If you think you can." I said, "I could teach you to read all day on my head." And we did. And now that person is teaching kids to read. That's her job. She gets paid to teach struggling readers as a paraprofessional in classrooms to work with people learning phonics. It's a fresh honor, and she's amazing. I have a student that I currently work with that just little things, like tiny little successes that add up to so many great things, like being able to read. Now they're first and learning the ABCs. We did that. Right? And now they're studying for their GED. Like, that's huge. And being able to, I got a text from my student saying, I read a recipe all the way through and I am now able to cook dinner for my wife and give her a break, instead of always just being able to read it. And these are things I take for granted. I forget about recipes. I rely on these things, So we have those success stories. And on our language learners, I'm so, so happy to be able to say that we started this program with language learning on a curriculum in small group classes done by levels. And within our first year, every one of our people who attended classes moved up a full level. And that's really unique. And when we look at the GED numbers through the TABE program, that's what the state uses to measure gains. We like to see them move within a year. And for English language learners, they always give 2 to 3 years. So for us to see these gains so well, because they're small and so personalized, to see gains, everybody moved up. We just started our new session in January, and we have students. One of our students most recently, a couple months ago, just became a U.S. citizen. So seeing those type of gains and seeing the difference that we make, they're just amazing every day.
Wow. As a teacher, what do you love about light bulb moments? That's one of my favorite things to talk to
I'm just going to start
educator.
crying over here. I hate talking. I'm sorry, the question, as a teacher, what do I love about them?
What do you love about the light bulb moments? For me, of being able to see someone that, has worked towards something and, you see the struggle, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, the lights come on and then it all comes together. Sounds like you have the opportunity for tons of light bulb moments.
I do. And at different stages and different levels. I mean, when I'm working, I'm a tutor. I tutor students as well. And being able to, we're reading together and I'm looking ahead and I'm bracing for a word like, all right, here we go. And then just see them just fly right over it and just not even blink. And I'm like, oh, it happened. And then I bring it up and they're like, yeah, I saw that one coming. I really worked ahead for that one, and just knowing that they knew where to break the word into a syllable. Or, yeah, I remember pro from this. We talked about it before. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's in working with low literacy. Language, I just like seeing them reach and grasp for the words. At the college, I see it all the time, of course, in my students. So I get a lot of those. And I think in a way I love these moments. It kind of becomes one of those things that we're addicted to. Like, I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have those. So, I think those are important. And I do get to witness them a lot and see how they just keep moving forward and still seeing that really humble part, that they're just cruising right along, but then they have those doubts. Like so much of what we do, and I do tutor training for the organization. And one of the things I always say is it's about confidence. I want to say so much, maybe not 90 because they still have skills, but I would say close to that. It's a confidence game. Like if you believe you can do it, teaching self-efficacy is the first step in teaching any skill. And so really getting them to believe that they have the tools and the ability within them to be able to do that, and seeing them go means somewhere that efficacy light bulb went off and they said, I can do this. And when that happens, we're just along for the ride, right? And we get to just observe it in the wild. And that's the gift I get every day. Probably every day. That's kind of cool, huh?
That is really cool.
I'm like, wow, I do get it every day. So, yeah.
Well, and confidence is a transferable skill.
It is.
Because if you can get wins in other areas, you know that the possibility exists that they could be transferable to something else. So that's got to be something that's interesting as well, because you're thinking about, well, okay, I'm teaching this person to read, but then all of a sudden they're like, okay, if I can do this, then there's probably other things in my life that I can also do.
Absolutely. Yeah. My student can read. Well, there's those moments of kind of humility and humbleness where like, well, do you think that maybe one day down the road, I don't know, maybe I could get my GED with this tiny little voice? And you're like, oh, of course you can. But that's what it does, right? I can learn to read, something I couldn't do before. And reading is not something that people learn on their own. You can stare at a page for days. It's like telling time, right? I couldn't tell time until I was in junior high school. And I was stumped every time in the pressure and the bolting and the panic because, just somehow along the line, I slipped through the cracks, just like our adult learners do. Somehow they slip through. And once somebody counted it out, 5, 10, 15, 20, and did all the numbers, I go, that's it? And they're like, that's it. Right. And then I knew how to do it. And that's what happens with reading. Once you break a code for them and you give them the tools, there's just really no stopping. They just need practice after that. Like, just keep doing it. But it has to be taught. It has to be a skill that's taught. And so that's one of those things that once they get it, that confidence applies to everything now. But reading just is tied to everything too. We don't realize how much of being able to get a better job, being able to help and support your family in the many ways that we support our family, not just financially, but emotionally, behaviorally. So much of that's tied to reading that once we open that door, there's really, it is kind of that superhero skill that it just goes. So I like being able to at least get that ball rolling.
If you had unlimited resources, what would be your dream literacy project?
It would look a lot like it does right now, but just on a grander scale. I want to see people, I want it bigger, and I want to see more people being helped. Pro Literacy says 10% of the people who need resources are getting them. 10%, that's it. So I would like to see it humming and people tutoring and learning and having classes. It's what we have now, just multiplied into a bigger space with lots of people learning and having it be a place where we can shake off the stigma of literacy and let it just be a place where people are like, I'm here to learn, let's do it, and have that. That's what I would love. And if we had unlimited funding, I would make that a priority. We'd have more marketing. And, it has to be more in our community, more marketing, more outreach programs to get into areas that may not be able to hear about it. And it's not that rural areas are more illiterate at all. It's just they don't touch the same components that we touch in town. They don't hear about as many things. So really being able to do an outreach to rural so everybody knows about the Literacy Project and knows what we have to offer. And I think that's it. I just want it bigger and more people served. That's what I would want with unlimited resources. And hopefully an executive director with great strategic initiative who knows what to do with all of those unlimited resources. Because I think I would probably just do the same thing. So now somebody else can take it from there.
And the Literacy Project in North Idaho, where do they go to learn about that?
Well, you can type in literacy in Coeur d'Alene, and our website should be one of the first ones that come up on a Google search, hopefully. If not, you don't have to remember what acronym it is for the website. It's literally just spelled out, which I know is tricky. But it's the Literacy Project NI for northidaho.org. You can go to the website, and there's all types of clicks. You click, and you just put in your name, and somebody will contact you. You can come call our number. We have our phone number is 208-450-2669. You can call or text. We do a lot of texting on that one. So you could ask for services there and we can get you referred to wherever you need. And the same thing goes for donating. You can donate online or you could call that number and we'd be more than happy to help and figure it out from there.
That's awesome. Well, Kat, I really appreciate you coming in and taking the time to talk with me today. It's been a lot of fun to learn about what you have going on.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. If you want more information, make sure to like, subscribe, all the things that we offer here with our social media with Integrated Interventions. And I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm your host, Patrick Dundas, Director of Education, and we'll catch you on the next podcast.